How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow?
The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
I'm doing everything I can. And stop calling me Shirley.
The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
All right, it's another edition of Sincerely Unqualified. I'm Kevin, that's Winnie. Today we're going to be doing Anchorman, the first installment of what many people call the Common Man trilogy. Or is it the Common Man trilogy, Winnie? Or
I think it's the common. So I think it's the average mediocre American man trilogy. The
Right.
mediocre American man trilogy.
So, yeah, I mean, if you think about the 3 movies that are in this, which, by the way, this is the first one, the first installment of that trilogy. And then what we have after is Talladega Nights. And then we go back with the sequel to this movie, which we'll probably touch on a little during, but there is a reason that we are solely focusing on the first one. So we have Anchorman 1, Talladega Nights, Anchorman 2. That's the trilogy. So what we're going to do for you guys is we're going to make our next episode Talladega Nights because we think it's a better movie. We think there's a lot to talk about comparing it to Anchorman 2. And then we're going to start doing something on our YouTube. We want to start diversifying our content a little. So what we're going to do is sometime this week, we're going to release a short video so we can get our takes out on Anchorman 2, what we liked, what we didn't like, where we think it did well, where we think it didn't. So be on the lookout for that. We'll have announcements going out. But next week will be Talladega Nights. And we are going to start putting, and you can see it in the description here, there's a Google Forms that you can fill out, rate Talladega Nights from 1 to 100. And we're going to give you a little, we get a little section so you can give your take.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear everybody's feedback on everything. I mean, we're very excited for Talladega Nights. Hope you are too. It's part of the mediocre man trilogy.
The mediocre American man trilogy.
American
what
man
I was going to say is that that's important because Ron Burgundy and Ricky Bobby, 2 of the most American characters ever.
And incredibly mediocre in their own right.
Mediocre, but also great.
That's a bit of, like they're great in their own respects because they're great. One's a great NASCAR driver. The other's a great newscaster.
Top of their field.
Or just great at reading, I guess,
Reading.
Which we'll get into a little bit. Yeah, he reads the teleprompter. Okay. He's an incredible reader.
Well, yeah, Ron Burgundy is. No doubt about that.
He has a great collection of leather-bound books.
Yeah, but we're trying to increase some engagement. We want people to be talking to us. So definitely fill out that Google Forms. Be on the lookout for our new video. And also, if you have any feedback, if you want to let us know, we're always open in our DMs if you guys have social media. Also, we have a email. It's just sincerelyunqualified@gmail.com. If you want to just send out any takes, tell us movies you want us to do. Tell us movies that we haven't done yet. Also, just general feedback, how you like the podcast, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Also, tell your friends. Subscribe, rate us on Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. We love hearing from you guys. So
let us know if we miss anything. If we miss a take, if we miss anything that you know about the movies, we'd love to know. I mean, this is why we started a podcast. We want to know more about these movies. We are interested in telling you information about these movies, but it's not like we know everything. Like there's a lot of things that we don't know about. So we're constantly wanting to hear from everybody too. It's, it's fun. It's really fun for us. So let us know.
We get a kick out of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So before we get into the episode, though, we do want to tell you guys again, we've been talking about them. Workedsneakers.com. That's worked past tense with an ED, sneakers.com. Great people over there. You're not going to find any Ron Burgundy suits. They're not going to go suit shopping that ends up in a huge newsman brawl. Not going to happen. You're going to do it from the safety of your home. You're going to go to workedsneakers.com you're not going to get some old suit, even though, I don't know, maybe those are going to come back in style at some point, because that's just
you
what we
never
do.
know. Hopefully not the early 2000 suits, because those are a little bit absurd, the baggy suits. But,
this
like
is
you
Shaquille
said,
O'Neal, like the oversized ones. Jason Kidd rocking like a...
I don't know how you even get sized for that kind of thing. Do you just go in and expand it by 7 inches? I don't know.
Yep.
But
you go in, they measure it, you add 4 to 7 inches.
I don't understand that. I mean, just doesn't make sense to me. They're shopping at, XXL plus for each suits, even when you're 5'7". Makes no sense.
If you're below average height, you go to big and tall. Big and tall.
Exactly.
XL.
But I mean, in the spirit of avoiding newscaster fights on your way to buy suits, avoiding sketchy meetups for a lot of the new stuff that comes out, everything, go to worksneakers.com. They'll treat you right. They got everything you could possibly want. WORKEDSNEAKERS.com. Check them out on social. Check their website out, and you'll get some good stuff.
Get the good stuff. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, you mentioned the early 2000s. Look, this is the only thing on the intro I want to say, just that's off topic, not pod related. On Friday night, we didn't really know what to do. The fitness instructor and I, for new listeners, I call my fiance the fitness instructor. That just, if she's not working out, I don't work out. So that's why I call her the fitness instructor. But we were watching some good throwbacks, and I well, actually you can see it, wearing a Motion City Soundtrack t-shirt. Shout out Motion City Soundtrack. But we're listening to some old music. I like, the pop punk ska kind of stuff. And I decided, so you know how people are coming back with these like 90s looks, the TikTok kids have perms and stuff like that. Really weird.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get out ahead of it. So
okay,
since we're in the 90s look right now, I think in about 5 years or so, we're going to be having the Good Charlotte come back. So I think I'm going to dye my hair blonde and spike it up. I wanted to get your take live.
I think that's a good call. I want you to go full on Goku. I think that's going to be a good look for your ass. Yeah.
I think I'm going to need to get
Saiyan, full blonde.
Well, not too much. It has to be short and spiky, but I need those, black t-shirts, the button downs, the short sleeve button downs, just plain black. And then I don't know, maybe I'll wear some eyeliner.
I was going to say, you need some guy liner. Like,
that'd be perfect.
Some under the eye, just a little bit grungy, a little bit too much. You're going to come out hot, because once that style comes back, because history repeats itself. It's going to come back.
It's coming back at some point.
The angst is building up within modern teens to the point where it's going to reload and just come back.
These people are going to have to know. I mean, there are good pop punk bands still making music. So let's capitalize on that. Let me get out. You can too. I would love for you and everyone listening. Let's get ahead of it. Come on.
I think this is a you venture. I'm going to stay in my style, which is more just like not anything special. I'm going to stay.
That's a great way to describe our styles. It's just like,
look, mine is just wearing anything with a Grateful Dead logo, because I think the majority of my t-shirts and everything have a Dead logo. So essentially that's just my style. No, I'm not one of these buy it from,
name 5 songs.
News stores. Name 5 songs. What do you want me to name? Whole albums? I'll go off if you want. We're not a podcast about that, Kevin. But
we could, though.
I think
big Dead guys.
We could. We could be.
There are bigger Dead guys than me, that's for sure. But
absolutely, I think that if you choose to do this, I fully back you, and I'm on your side.
Thank you.
I am. I'm fully behind it. I'll pay for the haircut. I will.
Well, that means a lot. So should I stick to like great clips? Should I go for the $20, or can I get the full experience? Can I go?
I'll give you the full experience. I know they have some good salons out there in LA that some of the actors frequent. So I'll get you an appointment at one of those, and we can
I'll go to the guy that did hair and makeup for Matt Damon in Eurotrip when they sing Scotty Doesn't Know. When even though he's just gonna shave my head, but that's one version of it.
I'm gonna America's Next Top Model your ass and just pay for it all.
There we go.
You're good to go.
I'm with it.
Yeah, man.
All right. So let's get into Anchorman now. Yeah. Anchorman, the first Judd Apatow produced Adam McKay, Will Ferrell movie. Will Ferrell and Adam McKay are the writers. So it is very, very SNL inspired, I would say. Is that fair?
I think that's really fair, especially because this is their first film together, all of them. And I think this is the first film Adam McKay actually came out and just directed.
Mm-hmm. It was his first directed movie. Yeah, that's true.
So they're just drawing a ton on all of their SNL background, and you can see that in a little bit of the cast too, of just roping in everybody from that SNL experience and getting their experience together to put this movie on, which I definitely liked. It was the start of an era, I'd say.
Oh yeah, this was very early on in what I basically just think of as the Judd Apatow period. So. Again, if you're new listening to us, you can look back on our catalog. We've done a lot of Judd Apatow movies already. And that's because pretty much we started with our favorite comedies. And when you are our age, you're growing up in that era where it was, 5 years past the biggest releases of comedy movies, which were pretty much Judd Apatow produced movies. There's a specific type of movie that we just love. We love them.
We grew up in the heat of these coming out. Like I remember being 11 or 12 years old and going to see literally Talladega Nights in theaters. I was probably like 13 actually, but going to see these movies in theaters, even like the kicking and screamings and all of that. It's just, these are being thrown in your face as you're growing up, and you kind of just grow up with this style of humor being so around you. And we just love it.
Yeah. Well, so this one's a little early. So this one was released in 2004. So for me, I was 7, you might've been 8. So this one is when I said 5 years down the line, you get this first one. And this for me, it was one of the first ones I remember. And I might have said this on this podcast already about another movie, but this one really, I can remember going to my neighbor's house, and this was the first comedy movie, like the first true comedy that I was like, I like this. There's something about this I like,
Yeah.
So I was really excited to rewatch it, because this actually isn't one that I rewatched too much, because I think I over rewatched it early on.
Yeah.
So this is my first time watching it in a pretty long time. Is this one, in terms of your rewatching, like how are you with that?
I'd say the same for me, because you're so, you see so much of this on social media because it's such a quotable movie. So you're kind of, overwhelmed with the quotes from it and the GIFs and everything on social media that you almost feel like you don't need to rewatch it because you're getting the gist, and it makes it feel like you've seen it much more recently than you have. So rewatching it now, I probably haven't watched it in 6 or 7 years, but rewatching it now, it was so good. You forget really how good it is because of the oversaturation on social media.
Yeah.
Like boy that escalated quickly kind of stuff. Like when you see that all the time,
that escalated quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's us. And so if you go back and listen to our top 10 episode, our first one that we release, that's what we were saying about Step Brothers. And we didn't put Step Brothers in our top 10s. And that's because of this, like exactly what we were talking about, the product of the time. When Step Brothers was released, it's when every single one of our friends wanted to quote Step Brothers and quote it and quote it and quote it to the point where we can't really watch it anymore.
Exactly.
This one, what I think is interesting with the rewatch is, because you're right, it doesn't feel like you need to really rewatch it because there's all this content, all these memes, everything.
Yeah.
But there are so many good scenes and so many good bits in this that the internet can't get it all. You can't get every single one. So when you rewatch it, it's like, okay, I remember that now. That was super funny, because that's the thing. There are all these small things thrown in there. They're just like it can't really be memed now. Now everything's
there's so
a meme.
much stuff.
Yeah,
you can't meme some of the stuff because you need the context of the scene or you need the context of the movie. And once you're watching it all the way through, it makes it so much funnier. But if you were to just see like a boy that escalated quickly version of another one of these scenes, like maybe even I Love Lamp or something like that, you don't get the full punch behind that without really rewatching the entire movie, which makes the rewatch so much better, because you're like, oh my God, I forgot that this was even a scene in this movie. Or you forget the order, or you forget everything of how it kind of comes and plays together.
Yeah. And I think with the rewatches and how we grew up watching it, it makes it easier because we know exactly what to expect. It's kind of, and I think I've made this analogy on the podcast, but it's kind of like putting on a warm blanket. Like I know exactly what I'm going to get. I know these scenes. I'm just going to kick my feet up, watch this.
Yeah.
And something I think I was a little surprised about, and the only, I guess, bit of criticism, which to me is not, it's not criticism when it comes from me, because this is my style of humor. It's my style of movie enjoyment, but I can see people criticizing it for being, it's very bit heavy. And we said that about Hot Rod, but to me, Hot Rod is more, you expect that of Hot Rod. There was no question ever that Hot Rod was just going to be a series of bits.
Yeah.
And it's kind of filmed that way. It's kind of produced and packaged that way. To me, Anchorman feels like more of it, what the way it's shot, the way it is produced to the people. It's supposed to be a really cohesive story, and it's supposed to be a fantastic story, which I think it is. But I think people could look at it and be like, this is just kind of a series of bits. Like, to me, I think it looks like a really, really well developed sketch that, you know, someone developed the character of Ron Burgundy. And it seems like they could have released each scene as a series of sketches, if that makes sense, which
no, it definitely does.
Yeah. Like, obviously every movie is a collection of scenes and they follow a story. So that's exactly what I'm saying. But I think it could be, and this is what we were saying with the SNL, it could be a little too sketch comedy. It could be a little too improv-y for a lot of people. And maybe for critics is the kind of the way I'm thinking.
So that I agree with you on that. And I think that it's important to note that these are also a ton of SNL cast members coming together. And this is really the first time they've worked together on a movie. And similar to that, that's basically what Hot Rod was too. So it's really the SNL cast members of their time kind of going into the movie sphere and experimenting with how they can do it. And I think that they're more bit heavy because that's kind of how they were taught to write and think before. So that these bits are centric. And I think it's cool to see that similarity of like the earlier cast or the earlier members, like the Will Ferrells and everybody, they're thinking the same way that then the Andy Sambergs and the Bill Haders are thinking kind of down the line, which is an awesome connection because they're all part of an elite group, the SNL alumni community.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the best minds in comedy.
Exactly.
That's what I love seeing out of this, is because this, to me, at least, and I might get blowback for saying this because I'm not thinking far back right now, but in terms of our childhood, this is the first successful SNL, leaving SNL but the SNL crew making a movie. Yeah. It's the first successful movie, the feature length movie. And I think it holds a lot of elements to that. And I think that's why a lot of people love it. Yeah. Because we like silly movies. That's
exactly
that is another thing I forgot, is because I think I look back with these rose-colored glasses and be like, what a fantastic movie. But you forget how silly it is. Like, a lot of it is just supposed to be silly. It's supposed to be let's just laugh. Let's have a good time.
And that's how it was written too, which is awesome. I mean, you have to have those movies that are not taking themselves too seriously, and they're made for the purpose of, here's silly comedy. Enjoy it if you want. If you're a stickler and don't want it, you don't have to watch it. It's not for you. It's not like they're vying for Oscar nominations here. They're making it because they enjoy making it, and it's a funny movie for the people who like this style of comedy. Now, what I will say to your point, though, about the successful SNL movies, is that we grew up during this point. So like, we didn't grow up knowing, because I know that this might come up, like the Farleys and everybody. We didn't grow up with the Tommy Boys. We didn't grow up with that.
Well, I mean,
before our time. So
I
mean, I did.
I grew up with Tommy.
So did I. But like, I didn't grow up going to theaters to see them. Like, I was kind of grandfathered into watching those more. So like, this was our exactly. So those were the successful SNL movies at their times. So we're saying more like centric to when we were going to theaters, rather than like, oh yeah, Anchorman's the first one to do it successfully. Like, no, we're fully aware that there's amazing movies cast members did.
Thanks for backing me up there. I hope people people might have turned it off before that, though. They heard my ranting and they're just like, nah, this guy's an idiot.
I'm like, oh, this is the first SNL movie. Like, no. We know the history here. Okay. We know who Chevy Chase is. Okay. We're very aware of everyone.
Yeah. And well, this type of movie is the McKay Ferrell stamp. Like, it's very improv heavy, which makes it feel like a sketch based, like sketch based scenes. So what makes it feel like more of an SNL style, because that's how they write it. So McKay loves and that's how we got this cast together, because he writes scenes specifically so they're improvised. And Will Ferrell, I mean, doesn't get any better than that. So when you have your two writing partners that are specifically trying to make it improv heavy, it's going to turn out like this. And we love it. Yeah. A lot of people love it. I think that's perfectly shown. Shout out my dad. He said he hasn't gotten a shout out on the podcast in a while. So something we love doing is looking at Rotten Tomatoes, because a lot of the time the movies that we love and the movies that most people love, shitty rating or a shitty critic score, but good audience score.
Heavy.
Yep.
This was an 86 audience.
Yep. And 67 awesome. Critic. So that's how you know you have a pretty good kick your feet up. Let's enjoy this. I mean, so I see 203 critics, 67%. That's honestly pretty respectable for Rotten Tomatoes for comedies. And then 794,609 people at the time of this, this is recording, 86%. So, people love it. We love the content. We love this silly type of filming. And it's what makes it great. That's what makes these movies great. And that's why we're doing Talladega Nights next week.
Oh, yeah. And then, so the cast itself, too, is made for improv. Like, when we look at it deeper, people who are slept on, I mean, everybody's watched The Office to this point. They know how great Steve Carell can be.
A lot of Office members on this.
He really, wowed them. We'll talk about it in a little bit. He kind of stole the show with his role, and he took it to the next level. And he had to do so to get this part. Well, but then you have on top of that.
Well, you said Steve Carell. Let's remind people of when we were talking about 40-Year-Old Virgin. The reason that 40-Year-Old Virgin got made is because Steve Carell was so funny in this. Judd was like, hey, do you have anything like that you're thinking of? And Steve Carell was like, oh, I actually have this sketch that I never really came to fruition. And that's came 40-Year-Old Virgin. But sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good.
Your next point, sir.
That's a perfect lead into this, because from this, Steve Carell got 40-Year-Old Virgin. Then we have alongside him David Koechner, who's incredible.
Hang on.
How do you say it? Is it Koechner?
Did you say Koechner?
I thought so. I haven't known how to pronounce it for years.
Hey, you should have looked it up beforehand. I'm pretty sure it's Koechner.
Koechner?
I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Let us know.
Keep going with your David Koechner. I'm going to look it up in the meantime. Yeah, it's Koechner.
David K. Koechner.
Put some respect on his name.
David Koechner. Okay, look, I love the guy. I love the guy.
Champ Bailey in the movie.
Champ Bailey in the movie. Look, okay, I saw a TikTok recently where people were calling him out for his name in The Office, and I was like, whoa, let's take a step back. Like, you got to know him from Anchorman.
Yeah,
I understand that he's widely known from The Office as well, but
Todd Packer,
respect on his name, Then you have Paul Rudd. I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? Paul Rudd. That's right.
No, it's Rude.
You're being rude by calling me out with that stuff.
It's Paul Rudd.
It's Paul Rudd. But I mean, this cast is incredible with the improv skills and working off one another. Look, Seth Rogen made a little cameo as a camera guy.
There are a lot of cameos.
I know. So we'll talk about it.
But
I just wanted to throw some respect on the entire cast for their ability to just take a scene and run with it. I know we've said that about a lot of the movies we've talked about, but this is kind of the intro to improv that we see in the early 2000s. It's the masterclass.
And that's the thing with Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell obviously is always the lead, but he surrounds himself with the best and brightest minds of comedy in terms of improv acting. So that's how you end up with Paul Rudd. That's how you end up with Steve Carell. That's how you end up with David Koechner.
You're a dick.
But no, and then next week, Talladega Nights, John C. Reilly, absolutely fantastic as well. So
Dr. Steve Brule.
Yeah, when you're with someone, and that's speaking of Tim and Eric, that's kind of that same feeling to it. It's that silly sketch kind of comedy, which we've loved in the early 2000s. We love now.
Oh yeah. And I mean, the improv makes it all better. There's little things in the movie that all come together and it really formulates it into the cult classic that it's become. Now, we've mentioned in the past, like The Hangover, when you make a sequel, when you make it a trilogy, it takes away a little bit from it.
Yeah.
In this case, especially after the rewatch, I'm going to say that the second one did not take away from my opinion of the first one and how good it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that.
That's a good point. That's very worth pointing out, because I don't know if it does with The Hangover. We'll probably do The Hangover at some point. So
just one. We're not touching the other two.
Yeah. And I think that what's funny with The Hangover 2 is it was so much more anticipated, or maybe just when we were what age we were. It was so much more anticipated that when you think of The Hangover, part of me always goes to that it might be because they made it a trilogy. Actually, it might be because they did 3. So it just throws so much stink on it. You have when you talk about The Hangover, good movie, but they ruined it.
Well, because the main thing that comes to mind for me right now is when you mention The Hangover, my first thought is always like, why? Like, why? Mm-hmm. I know, I feel like I say it every episode. It's like, why make 3?
Well, that's the thing, I think, is if you have a trilogy, then in the last 2 movies are bad or the same, then 2/3 of the content that you put out is negative. When you put out an Anchorman 2, we'll talk about this. We'll check out our video on YouTube, our Sincerely Unqualified reacts to Anchorman 2. We won't give too much away, but what we will say is it wasn't as bad as what they could have done. And I don't think that McKay, Ferrell, and Apatow could have done anything that bad.
Exactly. And that's also what we talked about last week with 21 and 22 Jump Street.
Yep.
22 Jump Street was successful because they were self-aware enough to know that they were somewhat doing the same thing, but they called it right out and they were like, we're going to do it. We're doing the same thing. They broke the fourth wall and were like, who would do this with a bigger budget, blah, blah, blah. The Hangover did not do that in any sense of the word. They didn't let you know. They just were like, we're going to do this. How did we get in this situation 3 times? You'll find out. You know, it was just, it was that kind of thing.
In regards to Anchorman 2, we're going to start out by talking about that. You're going to hear my reaction to what Winnie said in the video if you go to the YouTube in our description. So you want to keep it with Anchorman. Do you want any more flick takes off, or should we start telling the story of how this was made? Because I think that's almost like, it makes it fantastic. Just learning about how this got made, what happened. This movie, I think of all movies that we've done so far, learning about the story of the process of how it got made. And then obviously we're going to go into scenes, what was improv, all that kind of stuff. This Inexclusive exclusives, I think, is going to be fantastic. So
we're taking you through the story of Anchorman, the legend of Ron Burgundy.
Of Anchorman. So
Act 1.
Act 1, let's start with what it was supposed to be, or what it started out as. Started out as a pretty different movie. We'll say that.
A little bit different.
Yeah. So it started out as this kind of crazy, what seems like to me would be a stoner comedy, like just way out there. So it was originally supposed to be based on a movie that admittedly, I don't know what it is, Alive, but the general crux of it is that they were going to this Anchorman conference. All the Anchormen were in there together. And then on the way there, their flight crashes and they end up on the side of this island. And then all this craziness ensues and they end up having to fight like orangutans and stuff. And just a really out there kind of ridiculous movie, which look, that probably would have been a fun watch, but I'll tell you what, we wouldn't be talking about it nowadays. So I think that they made I think they made the right decision. I don't know about you.
The synopsis that I saw was basically like Anchorman's plane crashes and has to fight against Monkey Army in a cannibalistic style, like
cannibalistic. That's movie. Right.
Yeah, cannibalistic is thrown in there. I mean, I could see that being a thing, But even for, a comedy movie, it seems very outlandish.
Yeah, that seems like something that would be really funny we keep talking about sketches. I mean, if Will Ferrell wrote that as a 5-minute to 6-minute sketch, sure, give me it. That sounds funny. As 90 minutes of just like, that would be such a waste of, and granted, you weren't going to get the actors if you made that movie, but that would be a waste of the comedic talent of McKay and Ferrell. And I'm glad that they went the other route. Because
that's what makes them such comedic talents, is they took that idea and somehow got to Anchorman that we saw. So,
so really what happened was they had this first idea. We're going to call that what we just said, the idea.
The idea.
And the idea is just Anchorman. That's about the common denominator between the movies. Ron Burgundy was also the character, but what they did was they were watching these documentaries and they really got inspired by one. So Christina Applegate's character, Veronica Corningstone, she's directly modeled after someone called Jessica Savage, who was the first female anchor woman. Obviously that happens to her in this movie. And there was a documentary about her. It was featured this guy he was a local news anchor called Mort Krim. And he was in this documentary and he was shown as this big chauvinist. It obviously directly influenced Ron Burgundy, Will Ferrell's character. I don't think that they said it was directly him, but definitely the idea, the chauvinism of this anchor man was based on him. So
the background inspiration.
Right. And that's the key to them watching this, and the key to them being inspired is because they were straight up laughing at the fact that these people were so obviously kind of like insecure. Like, you need insecurity to be a chauvinist. Let's be real. We've come a long way in now 70 years. If this was like made in the 50s, or if I
think it was the 50s, right? Yeah,
probably. That's when the news anchor they were just ripping cigs and just telling news. But so they were just, Will Ferrell himself said that he was laughing so hard that like these guys being like, I was a little intimidated of a woman being in the office. Like, who are you that you have to be intimidated? Now we celebrate it. Now it's something. Well,
it's not even celebrated now. It's just commonplace.
It shouldn't go through your mind. Nothing should go through your mind, but it did. And they cracked them up about just the level of insecurity it took back in the day for someone to be like sharing the screen with a woman, which again, nowadays is just the most commonplace thing ever.
Yeah, and I love how they did that in the movie too. They just made it when she was coming on, and they made it so obvious that everyone was so freaked out by her just being a part of the team.
Chris Parnell, especially.
Yeah.
Sincerely Unqualified Cinematic Universe.
We love Chris Parnell. We love him. I think they just made it. They showed the absurdity through our eyes, through the modern eyes of what those people looked like back then, being so afraid or freaked out of a woman joining the news squad.
Yeah.
Because we look at those characters and we're laughing our asses off because, like, just like Will Ferrell, we're like, how is that even possible? How can somebody think like that?
Right. And that's what something I think about is important about the comedy. I think people can hear all these jokes and, again, thinking about if someone would be angry about this movie or someone would be critical towards it, I think people could pass it off as these just guys writing this movie, and the humor is that they're making these woman jokes. No, you're not laughing with them making woman jokes. You're laughing directly at them because they're pointing out the absurdity, and it's shown in that Will Ferrell being like, no, we laughed at these people, so we decided to make the movie about it.
Yeah, you're just directly calling them out for being insanely insecure and insanely just, I mean, how can you be, why are you the way you are, essentially?
Yeah.
Which is great. Okay. So we've gotten to the point of what it originally was, and where the inspiration came from for specific characters.
Right.
Diving a little deeper into the characters. So we have the formative idea of the movie. When they're coming up with all the characters, when Adam McKay and Will Ferrell were writing the original script, they actually had people in mind for each of these specific characters. None of which stayed the same. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
No.
So the suggested actors, I'll run through them really quick for the various roles. So for Champ Kind, you want to tell us who played him in the actual movie?
So
David Koechner,
acclaimed actor David Koechner.
Okay, you know what?
David
Champ Kind. Okay, so Champ Kind was originally supposed to be, the suggested role was John C. Reilly.
Whammy.
He would have been great, but he was actually doing The Aviator at the time, scheduling conflict, couldn't do it. Brick was supposed to be played by our guy Chris Parnell, who actually
stayed in the movie.
A different role in the movie. Exactly. Brian Fantana was supposed to be Ben Stiller, who played another role in the movie.
Cameo, basically, yeah.
Ed Harkin was supposed to be Ed Harris. When I say supposed to be, I mean initially suggested.
These were the suggested characters when McKay and Ferrell wrote the first script.
Exactly. So this is who they had in mind essentially when they were writing. Ed Harkin, they had in mind Ed Harris. Garth Holiday, who was played by our guy Chris Parnell in the real movie, they had in mind Dan Aykroyd. Frank Vichard, who was played by Luke Wilson, they had in mind Alec Baldwin, which is quite a switch up. And in the script, they actually had another member of the news team in mind, whose name would have been Marshall Connors. And for that, they had William H. Macy suggested for the part. So that would have been really interesting. Frank Gallagher.
Shout out the Gallaghers.
He's incredible.
So everyone knows how to spell my last name. Because it's some alcoholic fictional family.
Shameless. Shout out Shameless. Honestly, great comedy show too. That show's incredible. But William H. Macy, at the time, I can see how he would have played in, but I also think that it was really good they kept it to 4 and they kept it to who it was in the movie.
Yeah, I think it worked when it was tighter. I mean, again, we always say this, these writers, these directors, they could have pulled it off, no doubt. But I like having that kind of tight crew because it also feels more like, that's how these kind of things work. A tighter crew, you have the guys interacting.
And with 4, it seems like a more close-knit group.
Yeah,
with
that's kind of,
it's a little bit excessive where it's too many characters to develop almost. And then you would have had Veronica Corningstone. So it would have been 6 total. And then, it would have been a little bit too much to all dive into. So I'm glad they kept it high and tight. So they're always just keeping it high and tight.
I just realized, I think this might have been in the sequel, actually. They say this fictional show, or maybe it isn't a fictional show, and I just didn't look into it. And if that's the case, I'm sorry. They say the title of something as 4 is company, 5's a crowd. That might have been a reference to that.
Well, there's
Pepe Sylvia.
There's
Pepe Sylvia.
There's the show
3's a crowd. 3's company.
Company. Yep.
Yeah. But so I think that they made it 4's company, 5's a crowd. So maybe they were talking about how they were going to make it 5 and then they decided on 4.
Yeah.
Pepe Sylvia. Pepe Sylvia.
Well, I just want to throw in one little thing about our guy, John C. Reilly, who we're going to talk about next week. So when they had him in mind, Will Ferrell liked him so much for this role that this is actually because he had the scheduling conflicts and wasn't in this movie, they still wanted to do something with him. Like Will Ferrell wanted to do something with him. Yeah. Which is how we got our next week's movie, Talladega Nights.
It's so funny that I didn't know that we were going to talk about Talladega Nights at all during the recording of this. And now we've now plugged Talladega Nights. So if you don't know what we're doing next week, by the way, guys, it's Talladega Nights.
In case you didn't know, it stars John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell. We'll talk about it a little next week.
Yeah, but that's how you make a first impression. If you go through auditions and it just doesn't work out, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna put you as the co-star on the next one.
Very happy that happened though, because he is perfect in Talladega Nights.
He is, yes, absolutely.
We'll move on, because I don't want to say too much because we're talking about it.
Absolutely, because
because we're talking about next week. Because what are we doing? We're talking about next week.
All right, so we have these suggested characters, scripts developed. We're going forward.
Yeah.
They had to pitch this to Dreamworks like 20 times. apparently it was actually around 20 times before they actually decided to buy it and go forward with it. And Will Ferrell already had Old School and Elf out that proved to be not only critic or comedic successes, but box office successes too. So it's crazy that we started so out of left field and we keep going through. We have these people attached to it, and then it takes 20 times. And thank God they didn't give up, by the way, because I could see some people being like, I guess they're just not going to pick it up and just leave it on the blacklist and just hope that something happens. But I think that they just kept pitching it. I think that apparently they got denied like 10 times in one day, Will Ferrell said. Like by
That's
different.
Rough.
Yeah.
Well, they had so much conviction that it was going to work. Because I remember reading something where it was like, nobody was really interested in making a movie about newscasters. You know,
right?
Like it was tough to make newscasters the central subject because nobody was really interested in that per se.
You need really funny people to make a movie about newscasters funny.
Exactly. Because, I mean, if I'm hearing it for the first time, I'm like, what do you mean? You're making a movie about the news? How is that going to be funny? What are you going to do here? But it turned out to be a masterpiece. So credit to them for getting denied 10 times and continuing to just shoot your shot.
And speaking about the fact that it shouldn't be interesting, I think that's why it works as a compilation of sketches or scenes, because the storyline isn't what's really compelling, but it's the characters and how they interact in these scenes. And obviously the absolute ridiculousness of it is what makes it compelling. Like you have this newscaster fight and all that. But that is a credit to their filmmaking ability to make a newscaster and make a story about a newscaster going back, like a redemption arc. Very entertaining.
A movie that I'll equate this to, where it's tough to make it interesting. Taking a subject that you wouldn't think is necessarily interesting and making it interesting. I think the pinnacle of that is Napoleon Dynamite. I'm going to just throw it out there.
Yeah.
I think that's number one for just doing that.
It's just about nothing.
I mean, where is it? Like in Idaho, when nothing's going on ever. I mean, literally one of the craziest scenes was when she drops beads off at his front door and you're like, whoa, why'd she run away? I just don't know, but they somehow made it interesting and they did that here and I love it. And thank you for not giving up.
Yes. Thank you for not giving up.
I know. I mean, so one thing that I'll mention. So they never gave up. And I'm really glad that they gave this up.
You know who else doesn't give up?
You know who doesn't give up? Nothing. Never give up, never give out. But the title, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. There's speculation. I'm going to throw it out there now. It's speculative.
Speculation meaning that when we research these movies, we reference a lot of websites, and a lot of websites said that this is true.
Yeah. So
but I pushed back on it, saying this seems fake.
Look, we're going to throw speculative above my head and flashing lights. Speculative. Sorry, Kevin, you have to do that. Speculative. Basically, there's a rumor that we believe to be true that the title, Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, is actually stemmed from the Ron Jeremy documentary that's titled Porn Star, The Legend of Ron Jeremy. Which would be hilarious.
It's a documentary?
It's a documentary about Ron Jeremy.
Might be an interesting documentary, honestly.
It came out in 2001, and it's said to have inspired the title. Because look, it
makes sense. I mean, it's
Porn
like
Star, ellipsis, and then there's Anchorman, and then and then it's The Legend of, and then just the name. It's the exact same formatting. I don't see how it could not have been an inspiration. Even a little bit, but it's the exact same formatting. So
it could be. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I am willing to accept the fact that it's extremely possible. Maybe even likely.
It's just speculation.
We're speculating. Let's move on here quick. So we got the title. We got everything. Let's get into the movie now. So we mentioned it before. There are a lot of cameos, and aside from the obvious ones, you have Ben Stiller, Luke Wilson, Vince Vaughn plays a minor role. But in terms of cameos you might not have picked up on, this is actually one of Judd Apatow's only cameos in any of the movies he produces. So, so when Paul Rudd's character is doing his whole, or he put on his Sex Panther, a lot of people start freaking out in the newsroom. You have a lot of people saying things, and you see Judd Apatow in the back, and he says, it smells like a burnt turd or something. And in an interview, Judd was saying he actually hates doing cameos, so he was really nervous about just having this one line. He actually also said that he thinks that it's more nerve-wracking having one line as opposed to two, because then you have
Adam
more
McKay had 2 lines, I think.
Yeah, Adam McKay had the 2 lines in The Other Guys, I think is what he was saying.
Oh yeah, Dirty Mike and the Boys.
Dirty Mike, yeah. Go check out our Other Guys episode.
People still call him out on the street for Dirty Mike and the Boys, as if that's like his one thing that he's done. Yeah. Meanwhile, he's directed all these movies, and it's just like, there's Dirty Mike.
Yeah, a decent career, not just Dirty Mike. But so, I mean, Adam McKay actually is also in this one, but Adam McKay is known to do that. He plays a custodian, and then something that's pretty interesting is that when Ron Burgundy meets his downfall, he's walking through the streets, and then this little girl walks up and calls him a disappointment to us all. And then the mother calls him an awful man. The little girl is Adam McKay's daughter, and the mother is Adam McKay's wife. So it's all in the family. We got an Apatow cameo. We got McKay's whole family. Well, I don't know if it's their whole family, but it's at least 2 of them.
Yeah.
Or 3 of them, I guess, including McKay. We all get cameos. Obviously, this is so cameo heavy with just the star-studded cast of what you see, and especially the news fight.
Oh, and Leslie Mann, who's Judd Apatow's wife, was actually one of the 100 people who auditioned for Veronica Corningstone's role. So keeping it all in the family, continuing that trend. It's it's a nice familial effort on set, pulling it all together. Yeah. So a little more about Apatow when we're going through and telling the story of Anchorman and Ron Burgundy. There was obviously a lot of improv on set, because when you have this talent, as we talked about before, you're going to have a lot of improv. So Judd Apatow actually said that there's about 6 versions of every single scene, and that they had enough footage to make a 3-hour-long director's cut of the movie. And just for reference,
ridiculous.
The actual movie came out to be an hour and a half. So that's literally double the movie.
That's our Apatow sweet spot. Hour and a half, baby.
Yeah. Like there was an entire scene. There was an entire scene with Amy Poehler as a bank robber that just got cut. Just completely cut from the movie.
Amy Poehler and a few others. And then they ended up making it at least a short, I think, right? Or its own...
It's kind of its own thing. I think on the DVD version, they included it. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Yeah, but there was an entire subplot that they just had to scrap.
They just completely got rid of it. It was actually supposed to replace the entire 3rd act, which was like the panda stuff. Yeah. They just scrapped it and went with the panda stuff. Yeah. And then, so like during these scenes with the improv and everything, obviously they have enough footage to make 7 movies. But the one thing that was specifically improv, or a couple of things that were improv, was the Sex Panther line.
60% of the time, it works every time.
So how it came about is Adam McKay and Paul Rudd were kind of kicking around. Like Adam McKay was like, I want a math thing that kind of doesn't really make sense. So like, can you throw in something? And that's how it came to be it works 60% of the time, every time. So it just kind of came out like that from, can you say something that doesn't make sense at all that is math related? And Paul Rudd's like, I got this.
Yeah, that's what's funny. That shows the exact, shows the exact genius. I'm going to throw that word out. But
yeah,
to make as specific a request as vague as that is, I want something math related that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then Paul Rudd goes with this line. It shows the genius out of both of them.
He just goes, all right, I got you. Just no hesitation. And the same thing happened with Steve Carell, because they wanted him, and specifically in the love scene, the a cappella scene in Ron Burgundy's office, Adam McKay wanted Brick, who's Steve Carell, to have more lines, but there were none on the page for him. And Steve Carell, being Steve Carell, he literally was just like, all right, he'll come up with some lines. And in the scene, he came up with the "I ate a big red candle" and the famous "I love lamp" line. So in the script, there was, the kind of baseline for like the "I love you" stuff and everything.
Like say you love random things, or
like just say things you're looking at and say you love them. But the whole "I love lamp" back and forth between Will Ferrell and Steve Carell was just improv, completely off the cuff.
I love lamp. I love lamp. Sure, the second it's so it's that's understanding your character, no doubt about that. Like that's brick to a T, and I mean, Carell you can't get anyone to do it better.
I mean, I'm glad that they went with him for his improv skills. So they went with Carell over Chris Parnell because Carell just impressed so much with his improv skills that they were like, we kind of have to.
That's what gets you that 40-year-old virgin money too,
Exactly. And The Office, and now you are doing whatever you want.
Yeah. So there is definitely a lot of improv, cameos. This is a little more cameo based. So this is something that I caught and I had to look up because I was like, wait, did I just see that right? So there's rolling credits when they're going through, the newscast just ended, and it's when Ron and Veronica are just sitting there insulting each other. And that's actually kind of why I wanted to read the list. I was like, I wonder if they put the, maybe some people in the crew in. And then I saw John Hamm and I was like, wait, that has to be like on purpose. And they also put Adam Scott. So both John Hamm and Adam Scott are in there, but it's just because they were friends of Paul Rudd. So like they went in and they were just had these little cameos that if you didn't read the scroll, which I bet a lot of people didn't, you missed it.
I missed it the first couple times I watched this movie.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. Shout out both of them. I mean, we've talked about John Hamm a decent amount. Shout out Adam Scott. That dude is awesome. Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Step Brothers, holds it down. Even in a recent show, The Good Place, he's awesome. He's hilarious.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Glad he got a little shout out in this movie too. It's really cool because a name like Adam Scott, I don't think it's that common, but it could be somebody else. But when it's paired with John Hamm,
that feels pretty common.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't want to say it. But But when you pair it with John Hamm, it's like there's something going on there, especially now when we, know more of who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, staying scene specific here, we're going to go to one of the more famous scenes, and that's the jazz flute scene. By the way, Fred Armisen pronouncing jazz flute as Yaz flute in this weird accent. It cracks me up.
I love when he does accents so much.
Yeah. Fred Armisen, speaking of SNL, GOAT. I love Fred Armisen. But in terms of this scene, basically, the idea actually came from Will Ferrell. So Will Ferrell was sitting down with Adam McKay, and they were kind of talking about, what are some of these weird quirks that Ron should have? And then he lands on, he obviously has to play jazz flute. And they're like, yeah, of course. So
jazz flute.
Jazz flute. Will Ferrell actually he plays flute. He's played flute pretty much since a child. But it's not him. They actually had to go to 3 master flautists or whatever you want to call it, like jazz flute players.
Flautists.
And they only ended up on the 3rd person. So even apparently the best jazz flute player didn't get it exactly right for them in terms of this scene. And they filmed this scene just at a Chinese restaurant, this, dark restaurant in Chinatown in LA. And the cinematographer was like, no, it was perfect. We really just had to do 2 shots because we needed one where the flammable liquid wasn't in it and then one where it was. And it was it worked out perfectly. So they took a while to get to the composition, to get the music perfectly right. And then while they were there, it was a lot of effort to get the scene, obviously, but what a scene, worked out incredibly well.
Yeah, shout out Tino's and shout out Fred Armisen.
Tino.
He doesn't get talked about enough. Tino, when he goes, okay, there's a quote, and I don't know everything about it, but him having one line where it's just like he always tells Ron something, and he's like, "We say this," and goes off about like coyotes and stuff.
The coyote of the blood of the young.
Yeah, hilarious. I can't believe that got thrown in there for one line. I'm so happy Fred Armisen's in there. He's very slept on, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you ever seen Portlandia, or if you've never seen Portlandia and you like sketch comedy, go check it out, because that is a fantastic show that I think probably could get overlooked.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, even the first episode had me hooked.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic.
All right.
Let's stay with the scenes. Yeah.
Stay with the scenes.
Yeah. Let us know a little something about the that news. We mentioned it like multiple times. So
yeah. Okay, so the famous news brawl scene where all of the cameos come in, which is like the Ben Stiller, the Luke Wilson, the Vince Vaughn makes a reappearance. Little thing about it, when Vince Vaughn's crew first comes in, in the background of the abandoned lot, you see they're on the Channel 9 turf. You see a little in the background, it just says Channel 9 on the wall on graffiti. So in that scene, the newsman brawl is actually referencing the scene, the opening scene in West Side Story.
Maria.
Just, I mean, but that's not the craziest thing about this scene. So they filmed this craziness all in one day. There's a total of 24 people in the scene between all the news crews. They had Andy Dufresne come in, the actor who played Andy Dufresne. And they have all these cameos. They have Ben Stiller. They have everybody. They're filming in one day. It's in a random lot in LA. It's an extremely hot day. They said it's over 100 degrees. And during this one day, 100-degree day, they have all this fighting to choreograph and everything. All these guys in full suits. On top of that, imagine it being 100 degrees. There's 2 horses running around. They have to corral these horses. Yeah. On top of that, they have to set a stuntman on fire. Like on 100-degree day. And they were like, we kind of rushed through it, but you shouldn't really be rushing when you're setting a guy on fire, which sounded kind of insane. But to film all of this in one day, it's a little bit wild to think about, because there's so much going on. Like even to the little point of Luke Wilson getting his arm cut off, and then having Paul Rudd get caught like it's Planet of the Apes and dragged in the net by the horses. It's really just an awesome thing to see and hear the background of it, because you'd think it'd take a lot longer than that.
Yeah, it's such a comprehensive scene. So much happens in it. So much goes on. So yeah, Luke Wilson getting his arm cut off is like one of my favorite bits in this entire movie.
Oh yeah.
I just want to make sure we get all the cameos out. So there's Ben Stiller. He's the Spanish news guy. Obviously, Luke Wilson.
Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
Who's like an Oscar-winning actor.
Yeah, like a dramatic actor. That makes that scene so good. It's just crazy that they only got it in one extremely hot day. And the reason that it ended up working out, and the reason that the idea came about, is because they were just talking, okay, well, obviously we have Vince Vaughn. These people hate each other. Something interesting to explore. And then Judd Apatow, our guy, just goes, well, what if they fight? And then that's it. This comes about.
That's how the scene happened.
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely insane.
Also, one little cameo. Shout out Danny Trejo. I mean, come on. Gotta shout out Danny Trejo.
We probably won't mention him. Let's just get another cameo in there. Jack Black.
Oh,
that scene. That actually is probably my favorite bit. Like, did you just throw a burrito out of your window? He punts his dog. He punts Baxter.
Yeah, he just punts him off the. What's something you love?
Yeah.
So I love Will Ferrell's line in that. I mean, it's not going to be in our favorite lines, but it's so crazy seeing Jack Black, how he speaks like a normal person, and then Will Ferrell to just come in and he goes,
easy,
you see
compadre.
What just happened to me? He goes, I did see. Was a terrific little spin. That's quite a raspberry.
That's quite a raspberry. Yeah. So funny just watching those two interact. Will Ferrell as Ron Burgundy. Jack Black is just some guy. But let's hop off our facts here. Let's move on to favorites. Give me when he's going to take the first. He got first pick for this character. Give me your favorite character in Anchorman.
I think number one, I think it's kind of the audience consensus. I don't want to jump the gun on that, but it's Brick Tamlin. Ferrell is Brick Tamlin.
Easy, right?
I mean, come on. That's all I'll say. That's all I need to say. Is
I actually don't think we need to say anything about Brick.
You don't?
Yeah.
No.
I'm gonna.
All there for you.
I'll back up mine a little here. So I'm going to throw a little hot take out. And this is actually something I enjoy that I did, because my favorite character, if it's not Brick, is Ed Hargan.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So Fred Willard, I will tell you exactly why, because he's not going to show up in my favorite lines, but I think that he has my favorite lines. There are 3 lines that he says, and they're all on the phone. It's just a cut in the middle of a conversation. So he has all these problems with his children. One of my oldest just shot an arrow into a crowd, or he tried this thing called acid. Or youngest, he took acid and shot an arrow into a crowd. And then he was on the phone with someone before too, and he was like, just let them go. We'll sort it out later. Like, he has all this stuff going on. Someone in his family just kidnapped someone and held them at gunpoint or something. He's talking to them, just like, just let them go. We'll get back to them later. There are so many great things, and he's so good with Ron, like just working off of each other, that if for those lines alone, though, I have to give Ed Hargan my number one character. I mean, I agree. Is so funny the way Fred Willard delivers these lines.
First of all, rest in peace to Fred Willard, because he was amazing. And I do agree with you, because that was my favorite ongoing bit, was him and his kids. And the one thing I was wondering is, because the first phone call we hear, I actually wrote it down. And we can use this as one of my lines if you want, but I got to read it out because it's so incredible. It was, but you and I are mature adults. We've both seen our share of pornographic materials. Oh, you never have? Of course you haven't. Neither have I. I was just speaking in generalities. He goes, I'll stop by the school a little later, Sister Margaret. Sister Margaret makes it so funny. Oh, you know what, actually? Screw you, Steve Carell. I'm going Ed Hargan number one. Over Brick. Not even a consolation. Look, that my thought after that, and then hearing our youngest took acid and shot a bow and arrow. He goes, our youngest took something called acid and shot a bow and arrow into a crowd. Something about just saying and shot a bow and arrow into a crowd is so funny. He goes, you know how kids are. You know how kids are. That's right. I was trying to think if you said anything else. So good. Let's go on to scene for scene here. We talked about it a lot. I mean, Luke Wilson gets his arm lopped off, and I should have seen that coming. We have Brick with the hand grenade yelling. He throws a trident at someone, kills him on a horse. The news fight has to be the best bit / sketch / scene in a 2000s comedy. I don't think it gets any better. I'm going to take the news fight. I think that's a great choice. I think there's just so much going on from that scene that's so unexpected. Brick just shows up with a hand grenade, and they're like, "Where'd you get that hand grenade?" I don't know. Okay. There's good Brick stuff out of this. Yeah, I love when he's running around, like you said, with the grenade, just going in the middle. I love it. For me, I gotta go. The acapella scene where they're discussing love in the office, and none of them really, like Paul Rudd's talking about how he hooked up with a girl for 2 hours in a bathroom and then never learned her name. Did he say Kmart? Yeah, in a Kmart. Yeah. That's it. And then they just break into the Afternoon Delight acapella, which I have to say, it's gonna kind of beautiful. My baby gonna hold her tight. All right, you be falsetto. I'll be. Afternoon delight. That was magical. That was it. Just your little preview. Sorry, everyone. That scene was amazing. That they just break into it, cut back to like just speaking, and then break into it again. Yeah, I just loved it.
No, I mean, that is when you think back on this movie, I think that you think of both those scenes. So
yeah,
I think we got 1A, 1B right there. Let's go on to line for line. My favorite line is not going to be one of those that you think about. At least I don't think.
Let's see.
A lot of things in that. But mine comes from Paul Rudd, Brian Fantana. So it's when it's at the end, we see Veronica in the bear pit. They're up top in safety. And they see the talent scout, the network talent scout, and Ron's deciding between jumping down there or just, going for his career. And Brian Fantana he's talking about how it's a network news scout. And he says, Ron, I know it might sound harsh, but God does not want her to live. For some reason, that cracked me up so much. Like, it's just this whole thing about how they've never actually came around. The other three, at least. Obviously, Ron loves Veronica, but they never really truly came around. And Paul Rudd's just telling him to go do the news story and let her die because God does not want her to live. That cracks me up. That's good stuff.
That's
right
so
there.
good. For the network talent scout who's standing in the distance with a clipboard. Just so absurd. For me, one of my favorite interactions. It's a line from my favorite character, Brick. It's just when they're walking right before the fight scene and they're like, Brick, I thought you said this was a shortcut. He goes, fantastic. Paul Rudd goes, well, is it a shortcut or not? And he goes, okay.
That you got to throw those in there. You got to throw those in there as the favorite ones because that is what we think of. That's what everyone thinks of. Brick, Steve Carell's lines makes the movie. Absolutely.
Just nothingness of his mind. So good.
So my second one is that's a bear noise, by the way. And
that was good.
So the direct translation is Kato Zhao is my cousin. It's when Baxter comes back and saves the day, and he's talking with this bear. Like, we knew something had to save him. We didn't know what it was going to be. Baxter comes in. You have subtitles down below. They're just barking, growling. I met someone of your kind. His name was Apatow Joe. It's like, Apatow Joe was my cousin. You may pass.
You are a friend of the bears.
You are a friend of us.
Baxter low-key speaks like 12 different languages because he speaks Spanish. And Will Ferrell's like, I don't speak Spanish. And then when Veronica Kornick starts speaking Spanish later, he's just like barking in the back in response. And then he speaks bear. I mean, he's a genius, Baxter.
Bilingual.
Baxter. Exactly. Trilingual. And I don't even know. And he speaks dog, I guess.
Good point.
Quadlingual? I don't know. Quilingual?
What's multilingual? Whoa, that was dumb.
We'll go with that.
That was dumb. Multilingual is the term.
Is it?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll cut this out if necessary.
No, we won't. We don't.
We will not. We don't cut anything out.
That is something that if you're new with us, we don't really take anything out. So
no,
continue.
This is all one take.
Fuck
it. We'll do it live. For me, my last one is when Ron Burgundy is about to play the jazz flute. And the jazz flute, and walks up and he's just going like, you don't know what's about to happen. He's like, so unexpected. And then he walks up and he goes, keep the cymbals splashy. Jay, let's take the bass line for a walk. I lost it.
So he pulls the flute out of his coat pocket, or his sleeve.
Let's take the bass line for a walk. Okay, nice.
Very good. Definitely. You have an honorable mention. We need
honorable mention we got to throw out there. It's improvised. They were driving around for 3 weeks with the phone booth, dropped it off on a street corner. Will Ferrell made his magic. And in that moment, he said, I am in a glass case of emotion.
Just crazy that they were driving around with it for that long, too. And then,
I know it. Dropped it off and just let him do his thing. Driving around for 3 weeks with a phone booth, you look like a psycho.
Yeah, no doubt.
What are you, Doctor Who?
Could be.
References. But
so many references.
Look,
dude, your references
British
are
on
insane.
TikTok.
Everyone says that about you.
I know. Everyone says that about you, man.
Shout out, This Is the End, man. All right. That was Anchorman. Fantastic movie.
Absolutely.
One of the goats of our childhoods. Fantastic story of how it got made. We hope you guys enjoyed. Be on the lookout for our YouTube video, and with TikTok, with Twitter or something, you might need to have the app. YouTube, you don't. So please, if you want to support us, at least go give it a view. Go like it.
Yeah,
check it out, because we want to start getting some traction here. So,
oh yeah.
Anything else? Anything for the people?
Great movie. If you've not seen it, you're missing out.
Good on the rewatch too, especially, if you've seen it a lot like we have, it could be a background movie, but you're going to enjoy it in the background.
Exactly.
That's not a diss to it at all, obviously. You heard us talk about it.
Also, Kev, do you know what we're doing next week? Just so we can... I don't know if we figured it out yet. But
we might be doing Talladega Nights. Okay. Yeah.
Really?
No, I was even going to say that too, and I was like, that's so annoying for people at this point. But look in the description below. It will have our Google Forms. Let us know what you think about Talladega Nights, just so we can talk about it. We want to know what the people are thinking. So,
what do you want to hear about Talladega Nights? If you had a preference.
Right. Until
we're going to
then,
tell you stuff.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Winnie.
We'll see you at the next episode.
High and tight, baby.